Shalom, everyone. We started the new Perek HaGozel. The Gemara will ask the big question about what's the difference between a thief and a robber. This is something we already did and we already heard about around page 79 in Baba Kama, asking ourselves the difference between those two things, where the deepest point is to understand what's so bad about stealing and robbing. And I'm sharing the page and we'll start. So what's between robbing and stealing? And so I'm just echoing what we saw in Baba Kama in page 79, where Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. In other words, this is a Masorah that goes all the way back to Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, who is the student of Hillel v'Shammai, and he's the one that established in Yavne. In other words, this is a topic that Chachamim are dealing with for generations and generations. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to them to his students, asking what's the difference between a robber and a thief. He says, this one, the robber, equated the honor of the servant to the honor of his master. And that one, the thief did not equate the honor of the servant to the honor of his master. The robber fears neither God nor people because he's doing it openly, as he is not afraid to rob in public. And the thief does not fear God because he's still stealing, but he does fear other people, which demonstrates that he is more concerned about human than God. In other words, he's doing it at night, he's doing it hiddenly, so people won't see. In other words, he's more concerned of what people will say than what God will say. But these two questions, these two acts of sin, gneva v'gezer, robbing and theft, is inside of in halacha becomes something bigger than just the sin, just the act of stealing. And first, let's see the psukim that are that all the halachot are based on. It's psukim in Vayikra, in Parashat Kedoshim, and in Pasuk Yud Aleph in Perek Yutet it says, "Lo tignevu v'lo techachashu." You shall not steal. You shall not deal deceitfully or falsely with one another. In other words, the stealing here, the gneva, is together in one pasuk with deceitful and lying and false. This is the group where ganav, where a thief is. In pasuk Yud Gimel, in that same perek, it says lo ta'ashok et recha ve'lo tigzol. In other words, the gzela, the robbing, is together will you shall not defraud your fellow, you shall not commit robbery, and the wage of a labor shall not remain with you until morning. So it's two separate groups of injustice or deeds that you should not do to each other. These are all ben adam lechavero, but it has to do with the order, the right order to be in a society. And I think that the common denominator between all these things are, if we don't do that, I mean, if there's a lot of theft and deceitfulness and false and robbery and defraud in a society, then there is no trust, then there is no unity, then there is no human society. And the Rambam understands that very well. And the Rambam says in Hilchot Gneva, according to the law of the Torah, it is forbidden to steal the smallest amount. In other words, it's not about the quantity. It's not if you say, oh, I just took, just one grape for my friend's grapes, or I took just one coin from a bundle of money that he has, so it's okay. It is not okay to steal even a smallest amount. It is likewise forbidden to steal in jest, or to steal with the intent of returning the object or paying for it. All this forbidden, lest one may become addicted to it. In other words, the Rambam definitely understand that when we allow in our being and in our sense of being that, I can just take a little bit, which is not from which doesn't belong to me, then it'll grow and grow and grow, and gradually we will not going to feel that there's something wrong about taking from that which does not belong to us. And in another halacha, he says it is forbidden to buy from a thief anything he has stolen. In other words, not even to, not also to cooperate with a thief and buy his theft. It's as if you yourself, are partner to that thief. Very interestingly, Shulchan Aruch says excuse me, we'll see Sefer HaChinuch first. Sefer HaChinuch says to not oppress. In other words, theft and robbery is part of Lola Ashok, not to oppress, to not hold on to that which is in our hand of someone else's by way of force or delay or deception. In other words, in no circumstances is it okay for us to hold something which doesn't belong to us, like delinquents who delay people, saying go and return, so as to cause that what is in their hand of someone else to remain with them. In other words, just it's playing a trick, and I have it, I'm keeping it for you, go, and then go again and go again, it's still with me, and in the meantime I'm holding in my possession something that doesn't belong to me. It's not good, it is forbidden, and this is an extremely bad trait. And so our perfect Torah distanced us from it and warned us about it in this place. As it is written, you shall not oppress your neighbor, as one who holds the money of someone else in his manner, that we said is called an oppressor. And even though oppression, robbery, and theft are one matter, even if the act of one is different from the another, as the intention of the three of them is that a man not take that which is someone else's in any way. It's true that there's a little bit of a difference, a different nuance in theft and in robbery, like we saw it, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai saying, but Sefer HaChinuch is saying the bottom line is that all three at the end are causing someone to hold something which is not belong to us, and that is, as he says, a very bad thing to do, since people pilfer each other in these three ways. Scriptures specified all of them and warned about each one on its own. Okay, it's three different things, but these are things that people always do. Like they find a way to have and take and keep in our possession something which doesn't belong to us. And as Sefer HaChinuch is saying this is an extremely bad trait. And let's see if Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo, when he comes to explain this halacha, listen to the words he's using. It is forbidden to steal or exploit even any amount, whether from a Jew or a non-Jew. This is not something that there's a difference between Jews and non-Jews. In other words, if I get used to, God forbid, steal from non-Jews, that is as bad as stealing from a Jew, because it is a trait that if we are if we do it more and more, then something bad is going to happen to me. Like I'm going to understand the world in a way that everything belongs to me, or I can own everything, and I'm not going to respect somebody else's property and belongings. And says Shulchan Aruch, and if it is an object that is not concerning, it is permitted. In other words, if it's something little, like such as to take from a package or take a splinter from the fence to brush his teeth with, and so that's okay. But he does mention that even this is prohibited by the Yerushalmi, by the Jerusalem Talmud, as a quality of fervency. In other words, Maybe halachically to take like a splinter from a fence, from a wooden fence is okay, but don't do that. It's midat chasidut, says the Yerushalmi. Try to make yourself as clean as possible and not touching anything that doesn't belong to you. And then something beautiful, beautiful that Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch is saying in Igrot Tzafun. It's a collection of letters that he wrote, and he's saying something about Parashat Mishpatim. Parashat Mishpatim, where all the mitzvot are dealing with Ben Adam lechavero, and says Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, judgments of principles of justice. The first requisite is justice. Respect every being around thee and all that is in thee as the creation of the God. In other words, if you learn to respect what belongs to another person, it's as you respecting God, because if this is what he has, this is what she has, that means that this is what God gave her. And if I'm taking part of what she has, it's as if I am taking something that belongs to God. And says Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, justice, mishpat tzedek, is the beginning of creating a just and moral society. Everything belonging to them, there are um, in creation of the God, everything belonging to them as given them by God or in accordance with law which he has sanctioned, live willingly to each being that which is justly entitled to call its own. Be not as regards aught a curse, especially honor every human being as the equal. Regard him in his essence, that is to say, in his invisible personality, in his bodily envelope, and in his life. Extend the same regard to his artificially enlarged body, his property, to demands to the demands which he may be entitled to make upon you for assistance by grants or property or acts of physical strength, in measure and number, in recompense of injury to his person or possessions. Have regard also to his heightful claim of truth, of liberty, happiness, and peace of mind, of honor and undisturbed tranquility. Do not abuse his weakness of heart, mind, or body. Do not unjustly employ the legal power over him. I think that's a beautiful piece of moral behavior that Rav Shimshon is learning from the prohibition of stealing and robbing. Because when we send our hand to take something which doesn't belong to us, that means we don't respect the other being, the other human being, as entitled of his freedom and will and possession and spirituality and truth. And God wants us to regard each person as entitled of having all of that is, and train ourselves to be happy and to be content with that we have. If the other person has something that we want, we should try to get it in a legal and in a truthful way, and not by taking it away from that person. And all these behavior that has to do with gezel and geneva, theft and robbery, are traits that are there to make sure that we create just and moral society where people can trust each other and not always suspect and be suspicious of other people, that they're going to take something that belongs to me. And with that, with suspicion, we cannot create a calm and tranquility chevra. And therefore, and we have, as we'll start to see in Perek Gozel, that's why Chachamim are taking it so seriously when someone, takes something which doesn't belong to them.